Welcome to Wild Turkey Science, a podcast made possible by Turkeys for Tomorrow. I'm Dr. Marcus Lashley, Professor of Wildlife Ecology at the University of Florida.
And I'm Dr. Will Gulsby, Professor of Wildlife Ecology and Management at Auburn University. We're both lifelong hunters and devoted scientists who are passionate about hunting, managing, and researching wild turkeys.
In this podcast, we'll explore turkey research, speak to the experts in the field, and address the difficult questions related to wild turkey ecology and management.
Our goal
is to serve as your connection to wild turkey science. Yeah, I thought it'd be really important for folks to hear your perspective on the early succession conversion, restoration, maintenance, but also I think that's really interesting fodder for people to think about because even, I'll just say the majority of people, even if they're on a lease, they're managing fields.
That's right.
And there may be ways that you can adjust your management of those fields, even if you're typically using them as food plots. You may be able to adjust that to accommodate the poult-rearing cover, which several studies now have identified as a real problem across the landscape.
Well, my fastball pitch right down the middle for the turkey landowner. The landowner calls me and says, I don't give a rip about nothing but a wild turkey, and I want to shoot as many of them in the face as I can on this piece of property. My fastball down the middle, I'm going to look at roads and infrastructure and then the integration of all that stuff in the property. So if we've got all the fields on one side and all the woods on one side, we're going to have to do a timber work. We're going to have to make fields places. We might even plant trees places. But then the corridors, man, daylighting those roads and then managing the early succession up against the road, that's like a 2-year return. You're almost immediate return on wild turkey sightings, at least, let's say. On managing roads and corridors. The other thing on the fields, we talked about I mentioned brown top millet. I've grown frustrated with perennial white clover. I'll just be honest with you, from a white-tailed deer standpoint, we've already talked about it. It doesn't have the production that I really like, but it plays out. We get these summer droughts. I feel like sometimes it costs a lot, but if I want to shoot a wild turkey in the face, I'm going to have me a deadgum white clover plot. Somewhere, but I'm going to put it on the dirt where it wants to be. So the first thing we do with any landowner, but particularly wild turkey, pull a soil map and we look at what are your soil types that we can maintain in early succession with the least amount of effort. So if I have highly, highly productive dirt, that's where I want my food plots. If I have reasonably productive dirt that's in a scenario where it's difficult to manage, that's where I want forest. If I've got crummy dirt, I want to find the worst dirt on the whole place. And I want to manage the stew out of that in early succession. And that's the fastball down the middle, is to take the soil map and get the crayons out and draw in and say, look, we need early succession here in this crummy dirt because you ain't losing nothing anyway. And it's going to be easier for you to maintain. If you got really good dirt, we're wasting it not to put a forage crop or a seed crop or some kind of production there and manage that for that. And then you're going to have forest somewhere in between because heck, turkeys need forest. And then we want that forest to be as diverse as we can possibly get it.
Mm.
So that's it. The diversity, roads and corridors, using the site well, and I got to have me a clover plot so I can put Pepaw or Junior on the clover plot to get that easy bird.
I love it. I think that's good advice.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, one question before you answer that. Is your perception just you've been working with landowners in Mississippi for a long time. Are you getting the feeling that more landowners are telling you, yeah, I'm all about turkeys or less, or is that staying the same?
Well, yeah, we actually have data on that. So we're getting a declining interest, and this sounds bad, but it's still our number one species, if you will, is still white-tailed deer is the primary objective. And wild turkeys have always been the number two or close to it. Number two. So we ask people whenever we visit with them, tell us your top 3 objectives if you've got 3 or top 3 priorities and list them in order, 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is most commonly going to be white-tailed deer or turkey. But number two, believe it or not, is most commonly production forestry. And then so turkey kind of falls right behind that. But if you care about, let me say this, for our landowners who put turkey as number one, or if turkey falls in that top three, it's probably number one. Like they're going to be a turkey hunter is a turkey hunter. It's like duck hunters. If a guy's got a property to duck hunt, he's like, yeah, I bought this to duck hunt. So that tends to be the difference in a turkey tract, if you will, because if deer is number one, then he's like, well, I like turkeys too. My cousin likes the turkey. I might trade out a turkey hunt. You know what I mean? Turkey is casual, but if it's turkey number one, he's like turkey's number 1, 2, and 3. You know what I mean? It's not. So that's kind of the difference in your kind of deer and turkey landowner. But that's
to go with kind of the conversation about change. Is your perception that has changed over the last couple of decades, one way or another?
Man, we just pulled the data on all that for deer, and so that's all fresh in my mind on deer because we presented about that, how the deer landscape has changed. We did not look at turkey. We're actually going to do a human dimensions. Well, we're going to do. There's a bigger human dimensions project that needs to be done on turkey. So we want to answer your question, and it's in our intention to do that in the next fiscal year, with a really good human dimension study. But just from the ground, talking to landowners and whatnot, I would definitely say that it is increasing. I would say that what has happened, we have now a generation, my generation, is getting into the land ownership stage, and we're the ones that grew up actually being able to that heyday of turkey hunting. You know what I mean? When I was a teenager was when we were in Mississippi, at least when we were in that heyday. And so we're seeing those folks enter into the land ownership realm, and definitely I would say turkey is increasing as an objective, and that's not based on data. That's based on personal opinion. But your question is a very good question. We want an answer to that question, and we're going to get a real answer to that question.
Maybe next time you'll
have
some data.
That'll be an Adam. An Adam thing. Last thing I did leave out, I got to thinking my fastball also includes SMZs. So you must have in the fastball there. We actually have a GPS collar study. You and I have talked about this. When we put GPS collars on turkeys, it made me feel really stupid because I thought turkeys did this and did that, and then we looked at the GPS data and I thought, oh my gosh, it is a humbling experience to manage a property for, let's say, 10 years for what you perceive to be good wild turkey. I'm doing the best thing for wild turkeys. And then you put GPS collars on real turkeys and actually follow them around and you go, dang, wow, I was wrong, on what they'll actually use. But they use the crap out of SMZs, streamside management zones, any kind of river bottoms, regardless really of width. But obviously wider being probably better. I can't quantify that. But if you've already got streamside management zones, protect those with everything you can. You want to have at least that 30-40% of the property in some type of hardwood forest. And apparently the quality of the hardwood forest seems to be relatively, whether it's pretty oak forest or some junk forest, they seem to use it regardless. So, just being hardwood seems to be pretty important. But those are I forgot about that. And then I left fire off too. So in the fastball is also, but I said that about early succession. We're going to line out those early
critical.
Lining out that early succession. So that's it.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Will?
No, I'm good. That's all really excellent information. I'm glad you condensed it down for us like that in a way that's really digestible for the landowner there at the end, John.
Yeah. But that's it, man. You got to work with what you got and talk across the fence. Deer hunters know this to a degree. Obviously they're hunting an individual deer, but turkey hunters hate one another. Like they don't want to. It's like the sheepdog and the wolf. And they're talking in. They don't want to talk to one another. Like, did you hear a turkey? No, I didn't hear a turkey. It's hilarious. But talking across the fence actually helps quite a lot with management, with some of the management stuff for a while.
Yeah, and that's something for, I think, folks to keep in mind too, is that even if, as many changes as we've outlined over the past couple episodes, let's just assume you're in the rare situation that none of those have occurred on your property. you can almost guarantee they've occurred on adjacent properties.
Yeah.
And so we know that, turkeys function on a scale that's much larger than the average land holding. So you have to also remember that, maybe production is just fine on your property, but it's been greatly reduced at the county level. And those were, properties that were also feeding your population at the property level as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, good point.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to close out. I did want to get a plug in. So wherever you're listening, you've got a state agency biologist for free, private lands biologist. So we've got 9 in Mississippi. You can go to our website, mdwfp.com/private lands, and request a free site visit. Every state agency in the Southeast, and I can only think of a handful of the state agencies that I know of that do not have private lands biologists available. So almost any state, you'll have free private lands biologists. You also will have an extension agent that will generally be knowledgeable. You will have a USDA office that has sources of funding for conservation. So look into all those things, especially, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. No sense in not trying to reach out and get some free information.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really good topic to have you back on to discuss, John, is working with those USDA NRCS programs
Sure.
and how that can help landowners manage for turkeys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sounds good.
All right. Well,
edit it up to make me sound good. I'll do all that.
I think you did that on your own.
No.
We're going to do our best, John.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Sometimes you can't tie your shoes if the strings aren't long enough.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. We sure do appreciate it. It's always fun talking to you, and I always learn a lot from you. So I really appreciate you taking time to come on the show. And for folks out there, I'm sure John will be happy to talk to you or put you in contact with one of the great private lands folks in your state, or maybe even in other ones. I know you have a network of people, John. So
Sure.
We can provide some contact information and all for them in the show notes for you.
Sounds good, man.
Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks, everybody out there, for listening. Appreciate it, John.
Wild Turkey Science is part of the Natural Resources University podcast network and is made possible by Turkeys for Tomorrow, a grassroots organization dedicated to the wild turkey. To learn more about TFT, check out turkeysfortomorrow.org.